Hi, I'm Tammie Colon, the Executive Director of the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Allen, Auglaize, and Hardin Counties. July is Minority Mental Health Month, and the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Allen, Auglaize, and Hardin Counties is bringing awareness to the unique struggles underrepresented groups face regarding mental illness. While everyone can experience mental health or substance use conditions, minority communities are disproportionately affected. Adequate access to mental health treatment is also more difficult and can be linked to socioeconomic disparities being experienced by minority populations. For instance, Black and African American providers make up a very small portion of the behavioral health workforce, which creates a barrier for individuals to feel safe and understood in their recovery journey. We're here at the beautiful Art Space Lima to talk about mental health in our minority communities. With me today is Lisa Bradley, Prevention Specialist and CTAG Coordinator at Lima West Middle School, Erin Mclaurine, owner of New Look Fitness, home of the Soldiers of Honor Boxing Program, and a minister at In Faith Ministries International, and LaVonne Ward, a certified court-appointed child advocate at CASA of Allen and Putnam counties, and supports her husband, Pastor Dennis Ward, in ministry at Second Baptist Church. LaVonne and Erin are also board members for the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board, and I'm excited to have board representation with us today. It's important for our community to know that our service delivery is governed by 18 board members who provide a voice and represent all members of our community. 16% of the U.S. population, Black and African Americans, indicate that they're suffering from a mental illness, but less than 20% are seeking services for that mental illness. So what do you think are the barriers that are preventing our minority members from seeking services?
Some of the barriers that may be stopping or preventing them from seeking help is that they have it already made up in their mind that they know the Lord or they know Jesus. Well, this is in the community, African American, and feel as if God or Jesus has them covered. And so though they may be struggling with anxiety or depression, they feel as if Jesus is their doctor.
So it's their struggle. They need to manage through that struggle. God's got them through those struggles.
I'll agree with Erin to an extent, but I'll also add that I think that a lot of the minority community has trust issues with governmental agencies, medical facilities, and rightly so because of the history between minority communities and authoritative agencies. I think that we have not properly worked or not worked hard enough to mend those trust relationships. And I think in this time, I think that's where we need to start. Is to mend those trust relationships.
And I concur with both of them, what they're saying, because as far as the faith-based community, there's usually a stigma on, okay, is it a demon or something's wrong with the person when we need to talk about it. We tend to avoid those conversations, and then sometimes even in our homes where it's hush-hush, what stays in the home, what gets talked about in the home stays in the home, and so you have someone suffering in silence that might have been through some trauma and haven't been able to process it properly.
Yeah, stigma, right? That affects all of our community members in reaching out. So LaVonne, we know you're on our board, not only representing, the Black African American community members, but also as a family member. And your daughter has a story, and I think it's important to share as a minority female. What was helpful in her journey of recovery?
She mentioned being able to see our faces in the place, and just to be able to, because she went to a facility in North Carolina, and it was neat to see people talking about it, but also to see people like her. And Erin brought up the fact that we want to be able to talk about those things and see those things and see those people. And she was able to identify with it and know that she was welcome. That's why she wants to go into counseling now, to go back to school to help and to share her story as well. Because before she was, where we sweep everything underneath the rug, it's like, okay, I'm young and you're diagnosing me with this, but she's not her diagnosis. You know, she is talented, gifted. She's, you know, she's an entrepreneur. That just be happening something that she has to carry right now, but she's using it as a stepping tool to help others. So.
How do we particularly direct efforts to the minority population to help reduce that stigma?
I think that having a trusted person or a community liaison is always helpful. We oftentimes share, especially through our church families, we oftentimes share word of mouth, by word of mouth, who helped me or who really worked to understand what my issue or what my family's concern was. And I think when we get good information, then we share that with other family members and other community members about, well, go see Tammie or go talk to Sister LaVonne. And I think that's huge. So again, in all of this, I think it's so many times it boils back to relationship, and it boils back to putting people who look like me or who have some of my same concerns in a position of power and in a position of authority to be able to reach out and help the community.
I think also it's very important to build trust within the church community. You have an older generation that has been through so much, has led and paved the way in so many different ways, and have a great impact on our youth and the ones who are coming behind them. And I believe it's very important to get some of those guys who has actually been through it to kind of steer some conversations and kind of promote and even educate. This is what's going on. This is how I can help, and this is how we can move forward. I mean, we had the past, but we also had a future, and I think it's so important to move on in the future and educate and inform of what's going on and how bad it's needed to help those different mental illness that we face day in, day out. And sometimes we have no clue that it's an illness, but it really is.
Yeah, I also think the system has to get better at serving the population in the way the population wants to be served, right? Not bringing in our canned programming, saying this is the way we're going to do it, but really immersing ourselves into the church, into the community leaders and asking them how to do it, and then creating program backwards.
I think that's good, with an organization that really cares and have your best interests at hand. So,
well, I think of the two programs you guys run. I know them both, CTAG and your boxing, which are doing amazing work in outreaching to that population. And yet the system isn't designed to support that. You're out there, begging for dollars to keep those programs going.
In education, there's a phrase or a term that talks about we have to meet our students where they are. And on many fronts, we do that. But I think in the community side, because there is so much work to be done and because it is tiring, I think oftentimes agencies and governmental agencies, people in leadership and whatnot, I think they want to speed that up. With my students, it takes years to build the trust and the relationships with them and for them to share with me the things that they share with me. And what teachers and other folks don't always have is the luxury of time. They've got a very small amount of time to get a lesson or to get a goal or a competency completed, and they don't have the time to build a relationship. And I think that happens in the community as well.
Speaking of CTAG and the youth, I mean, they're really heavy on my heart right now.
Yes.
Prior to COVID and the protesting that's going on in our world, our youth were demonstrating the highest risks of suicide, depression, drug and alcohol use than ever in our history. And now on top of that, we've added isolation. We've handed division in our communities. And so I am really worried about how to positively impact them so they can use this experience for positive, but build skills and resilience for the future. Yeah.
What I like about CTAG is we are able to create an intersection of home life and academic work. While it's not a specific academic class, we talk about the social emotional aspects that sometimes their traditional academic teachers just don't have the time to do. And I was very concerned because they had to make a big turn, and kudos to our teachers and our educational system for being able to pretty much stop on a dime and pivot and flip over to an all technology-based learning environment. But that was really difficult. And the students that I had the pleasure of speaking to during this time of isolation and lockdown was that they were concerned and they really missed that comfort of school, and they missed that relationship opportunities with their friends and with their teachers, and even with, you know, the other folks who we don't oftentimes mention, the librarians and the janitors and the secretaries. All of those folks work really hard to build relationships, and our students are hurting. We have to find a way to continue to marry this outside academic new life with those old school relationships. And I think we've all still got a lot more work ahead of us, but it's exciting because we know that challenge oftentimes makes us grow. And we just have to find those avenues to make them be stronger and better in the end.
So what resources do you think we have that helps the mental health conditions of our minority populations, or maybe even that we need?
I'm thinking right off the bat, you know, we have the PASS prevention program, which meets the need in the community of what's going on and what people are going through. Being able to talk, being able to go to counseling, because that's what the PASS program does. It does the groups where people can talk and, you know, get their thoughts out and be able to, you know, just have a safe place to vent.
Support groups are so valuable. Mm-hmm. I am all about support groups.
Which minimizes diagnoses, conditions, illnesses that people want to really stay away from, but it provides resources and support and skill building, which is really what many of us need. You know, I always say to folks, you don't need mental health treatment, you need behavioral health services, right? We need to learn how to manage our emotions and our anger and our behavior better, but that's a skill building set. That's not mental health treatment. And so we've really confused the world in what's a real diagnostic illness compared to which are just some ailments that we need to improve in our communities.
Yeah, I love the idea. I have facilitated support groups for about 7 years now. And what I love about that environment is that it's safe and it's not anyone wagging a finger, telling folks what's wrong with them. It's just a safe environment to talk about what's important to you. I oftentimes can refer them back to the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board, either webpage or the helpline. And then I can also offer some ease with that. If they have a few, you know, just question and answer type things that I can help them to understand about that site, then that sometimes takes away the fear or the judgment that goes along with going on that. And when I can talk about anonymity and how those folks are trained and how those folks are right here in this community and can get you the services or direct you in the right path, I think that just takes away some of the fear. And we've had good work in being able to do that. I've shared in other trainings that I've offered is that just to put this number in your phone. And so I've always said I would rather folks have that number and never need it as opposed to needing that number and not having it. And I'm appreciative of all the pens and all the materials that y'all put out. It's been helpful to me.
Thank you. But you know, you mentioned in these groups a safe environment. And we know that safety would be increased if the facilitators were representing the people they were serving, right? And so how do we accomplish that in our community? How do we, as a board, reach out and train? Because many of these services, you don't have to be a mental health professional, right? You just have to have the understanding and the skill set in order to engage and help people learn a new skill.
Well, we often get it out at our church, and Lisa Kay is very proactive with working with the prevention groups. And so they have came in and actually did like mental first aid in our church to get us aware. And it opened the door to realize when we see someone with the symptoms of having a mental health emergency, and then made it, you know, took down the barrier from like, what is that? You know, because everybody, you know, we can look at cancer and say, oh, there's treatment, but when someone's having a mental thing, it's like, how do I tell? Do you go and get help? Do I ask? Do I talk about it? You know, so that's crucial. Word of mouth and talking.
Yeah, and our mental health first aid through PASS is a gift to our community.
Yes,
And PASS, prevention and supportive services, is really a gift. There's very few communities in the state of Ohio that have a prevention certified facility, and that's all they do. And we're very lucky to have that and to be able to partner with them and make those services available to everyone. And how you get that message out so people take advantage of it is, you know.
I run a boxing gym, and I get a number of different youth that comes down there. Because I've lived in Lima all my life, and I've been churched all my life. Church just simply means that you're born and raised in the church and you just did things a certain way and you handled things a certain way. A lot of the young men that come down into the gym, I see bits and pieces of myself in it. And I also see some of the parents, now that I'm a parent, struggling with some of the same things that I've struggled with. Their mindset is that there's nothing wrong with the way things are, or I don't want to be labeled as crazy, or I don't want to be labeled as one who don't care, or whatever that stigma may be. I think it's very important, like you guys were saying, get the education inside the churches, or some people need to know that it's okay to get help.
Right.
For so long, as a man growing up, I was told, be strong, you don't need help, you don't need this, you don't need that. But at the end of the day, we really do need one another, and we do need insight. So I think educating is another factor or add-on.
Yeah. You know, I'm equally concerned about the overdoses that our country, state, and definitely our community is experiencing. You know, in 2018, we'd seen a slight decrease for, a little bit, and then it stayed steady. But in 2020, beginning in March, the numbers are going off the charts. When you're comparing May of this year to May of last year, we're up like 47% in overdoses. Kids engage in self-destructive behavior because they're adolescents and they don't have the insight and the judgment and the ability to manage these big world events that are going on. And so they're turning to alternative sources that isn't going to help us at all unless we really get a handle on that. And parents need to have the information to know what behaviors to be concerned about. I hear from parents all the time, I had no idea. Yeah, in hindsight, I seen this, I seen that, I seen this, but I had no idea at the time. And so using mental health first aid, using churches as forums, piggybacking on programming that's already outreaching into our communities is one way.
I like the school aspect. I know that the teachers that I work with are hungry for the knowledge of how to bridge that gap between what they're required to do academically and what their students are in need of. With mental health first aid for the family side, I like that it helps us to change some of our language, whether it be in school or in the community, to help to encourage the way that we talk. Sometimes in joking, we'll use language like, oh, she's so bipolar, meaning that, she changes her mind a lot, right? Or he was killing it as a good thing. And I think through mental health first aid, we can sometimes help people to recognize that small changes, like changing our language and changing some of our expectations, are some of the things that all of us can do and that parents can do. I like that when we give parents a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of knowledge and power, then they also want to come up and learn more and do more. So it is a small step, and it's a very small thing that can sometimes be dismissed, but giving teachers and parents and community members the language and to shine a light on, what can we do, right? How can I help to change myself to help somebody else want to learn more or to do more or to be more? And I love that mental health first aid meets people where they are, which is what we were talking about earlier, and it gives them some clarity on a lot of terms and definitions. I've never met a parent in all of the years intentionally want to be a bad parent. That's just not so. They don't want to intentionally be a bad parent. And I believe that teachers don't intentionally not want to know what's the best way to offer this information. But I believe that this community can do it. We are resilient and we're powerful and we love one another, and That doesn't mean that there's not work to be done, because there is, but I do believe that this is something we can get better at.
In our profession, they talk about trauma-informed care. Really understand the trauma, the life experiences that anybody comes through your doors having, on their shoulders. Yet, while you can be taught it, it's really hard to understand and embrace it until you immerse yourself around enough people that you can learn. And I think that's really what you were saying. And, they talk about like healing communities, healing circles, where we really need, as those of us who are in positions of influence, have an opportunity to do more, make changes. We don't take enough time to really listen to the people who need us most. We've created a system built to serve the average person, but we have these minority populations that we have to build services specifically for, so that they can receive them and benefit from them. And we can't do that without you, right?
People who are in charge have to understand that their privilege and their power means something, and that they're going to have to work a little bit harder if they really want to reach the community that they say they're trying to reach, that they've got a lot more work to do. It's not just about flooding the community with money, which that's a huge help, but they also need to work to change themselves so that they can better allocate their funds and allocate their resources. And we have to start with having that conversation about race and how race and all of our history has played a part in where we are in our mental health challenges now for our whole community.
So, here I am, I'm listening, right? And really committed to making a difference and improving our community as a whole. What can I do? What would you ask me and other folks who look like me, other folks who have that opportunity, the ability and the influence? What would you ask us to do that you think would make an impact quickly, so we can begin moving on our long journey, but we can get, a jump start, which makes everybody feel hopeful? Because that is really what we've lost as a community, is our hope that we're going to overcome this and that we can be better because of this. Like you were talking about your daughters. We all have something to overcome. Well, our community does too. Let's do it, and then let's be better on the other side of it. What are your thoughts?
Us talking, putting our faith in practice. We prayed a lot. We talked. It takes a village. We believe in that. Everybody has to overcome something, so use it as a stepping tool. And that helped her to finally accept it and just be able to grasp it and to walk in it. She learns that it has taken the community, the whole community, the faith base, plus going to the agencies. And like she says, we always like to say, you can have Jesus, but you can have a therapist too. So
I'm gonna probably stay on this because I know how powerful it is. Relationships. If you don't know me, if you don't understand me, it's gonna be hard for you to help me out. I believe breakdown comes soon after that, and however that comes, I don't know, but you're absolutely right. So I believe building relationship, true, sincere relationship is key.
I would say, as a woman in power in our area, which I'm so thankful for because we need more women in power, I would like to see you and more people who are in power over the resources is to really put that money back out there. I know in almost every program or thing that I've been involved in, a couple of things always come up. Transportation is always a huge barrier. I don't exactly know what that means, but I would love for there to be more money and more resources available to get young people, because I'm focused on mothers and children. I would love for there to be more community transportation resources. If we want children, or scholars as my Freedom School program calls them, if we want scholars to get to a program, we've got to be ready to get them there safely and to return them back. So transportation, if you've got a pot of money, I would say put some money in transportation. I would say put some money into neighborhood opportunities. So maybe if I live on the south side of Lima, I don't have to try to get to north to go to a great after school program. Right. I am at West, which is a beautiful middle school, but we are on the very far end of the west side. And so if I live on the east side or the south side or some other side of town, transportation is always the biggest barrier. And then you as an individual woman, I would like to see you and more people who are in positions like yours at more events that are about people of color. And so whether it's church services, which I know we kind of go to that a lot, but church is very important to the Black community. And so I would love to see more folks show up at our church services to really be involved. And then when you show up, take off the fear cape, right? Of like, I don't know what's happening here. Just come on in and get involved. Of the churches that I am familiar with, all of them are very friendly and are very welcoming. And while at first they might kind of wonder what's happening here, but if you said, you know what, I'm here and I'm putting myself out here, I want to build relationships and I'd like for you all to meet me, I got a feeling that people would come back and would accept you or others and to welcome that relationship.
That's good. Amen. And Chad, I think, sent us, all the panelists, an article on oppression. And one of the key things, the points that it keeps coming back to my mind was that we're not heard. And that's why trauma gets started. We're talking at each other, not to each other, and not building the relationships that we need to. So like seeing, your face in our place is good. Our kids will, build a trust. Our adults will build a trust. And it's important to have that because that's how oppression is just built when we just don't talk, when we don't see each other, we don't interact, or it's just an interaction during Black History Month. We need to just have it all year round so that they see it and just, build a community because we have so many gifted people here that, we come together on one accord and talk and empathize with one another, not just, talk and you get your point. I'm just waiting to get my point and listen and see what we both sides have went through. So we can come together.
My pastor had shared one time that Lima is a birthing community. So it births a lot of wonderful things. It's the sustainability that we struggle with. So, I think we know it, we go after it, and then somehow we lose momentum. So it's really developing something that has strength that's going to last far into our future. Well, I really do appreciate your time and your honest feedback and dialogue. And I know that it's the month, right? And so that's why we're having this conversation. But I can assure you that our interest in having this, while it was preempted by the month, it's really because of our commitment to improve our services to the people of minorities in our community, all minorities. For anyone watching this, you can go to the website to see more resources and also to see the service and the agencies that have services available for our community at wecarepeople.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and thank you for your time.